Behind the Headlines on WLIW. It's our opportunity to sit down with the award-winning journalists who cover the East End, do a bit of a deeper dive into the week's headlines. I'm Joe Shaw. I'm consulting editor at the Express News Group, which publishes the Southampton Press, the East Hampton Press, the Sag Harbor Express, the website 27east.com, and Express Magazine. My co-host is the editor-in-chief of the Express News Group, Bill Sutton. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Joe. Hi, everybody.
Thank you for being with us. We also have Denise Civiletti, who's the editor of Riverhead Local. Hey, Denise.
Hi. How you
doing?
We
have Beth Young, who's the editor of the East End Beacon. Hey, Beth.
Hello.
And we have a special guest this week. It is James Kiernan, who is the chief of police for the town of Southampton. Hey, Chief, thanks for joining us.
Sure thing. Hello, everybody.
So it's actually Beth's story that prompts this conversation. We want to have a conversation about surveillance and the role that it's playing with police departments now. And Beth, maybe talk a little bit about what prompts this conversation, the story that you did recently.
Yeah, well, last year Suffolk County got a fairly sizable grant from New York State to install these flock automatic license plate reader cameras in numerous locations throughout the county, and they later received state approval to put them in the state rights of ways. A lot of people are seeing these cameras and they hadn't seen them before. They had been here for quite some time, but not in this volume and not in as many noticeable places. So there was a lot of concern when they first came out because a lot of people just didn't know what they were or what they did. And I don't know if that would be a good jumping off point to sort of let the chief talk about what they do.
Yeah, maybe let's start, Chief, with where did all this begin? How long ago did surveillance cameras and license plate readers in particular start to become a tool that police departments used?
All right. Well, sure. Well, yeah, let's talk about that. So the story mentioned Flock, so we'll talk about Flock, but Flock is a company's name, right? So license plate readers is really the technology. Flock is just one company that makes them. We have been using license plate readers for decades. Us, it's here in the town. We actually don't even own one Flock camera. We have some other license plate readers, and we've hadn't increased them in decades as far as our ownership, not what we use, and we'll get into that. But we've been using them for decades.
So this technology has existed for a while then?
Yeah. License plates have been around for a long time.
That I didn't know. I guess, was there a difference in the quality or in how they were used?
No question about it. The difference in quality and the robust software around them, where in later years or more recent years, you can put in a description of a vehicle. Red pickup truck, pulled up to some kids at a bus stop and accosted them or said something to them, or it was suspicious. They don't know the license plate, but they know it was a red pickup truck with a bumper sticker on the left side. You could put that into the software and it will search all of the license plate readers that you have access to for a red pickup truck with a bumper sticker on the left bumper. So yeah, the technology did get much better.
And that's similar has come into play often with stolen cars, right? In locating stolen cars. Thieves coming out from out west or from the city. And I know Southampton Village, it came into play last year or the year before with a couple high-profile cases anyway, where cars were reported stolen and were tracked using these licenses.
Just this morning in Quogue Village, car was stolen out of Quogue Village just this morning, and it was license plate readers that were able to, where the detectives were able to find it in Newark, New Jersey this afternoon.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been very useful up in Southold for the same purposes. There's a couple along the prominent corridors here that really catch anything going in and out of the North Fork, because it's a very narrow peninsula. So once you're on those two main roadways, you have to go through one or the other of them to get out of town. So they're really catching everything that comes off the North Fork.
Not only recovering stolen property like that, but when those vehicle larcenies were prevalent, and we knew that it was gangs out of Newark and other places that were organized, coming out here in numbers, there was a task force that was watching these people. So they would steal a car, to bring people out to steal cars, right? So if they had eyes on them, they were able to get the license plate number of the car they stole to come out and put it in the flock or the LPR system, and we'd know when they got to our borders. We would know, if that vehicle who was coming to steal cars, and we could prevent it from happening instead of just recovering the stolen property. It works as prevention also.
So along those lines, I have two questions for you, Chief, and they're kind of related. The first one is, can you just sort of describe for us how big the presence of these cameras is? And the second question is, can you do that? Are you willing to do that? Because telling people about these cameras, first of all, are you required to? And second of all, do you want to? Do you want people to be aware that these cameras are out there?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we don't want to, like I just mentioned, we don't want the bad guys knowing where they are so they can avoid them, right? They can get a map and avoid them if they know exactly where they are. On the other hand, they're out in the open. So our public, our residents can see them. So it's not that we're trying to hide them, or we don't have any that are inconspicuous or hiding. I do have one at the moment that we're testing that's connected to a trailer, so I could bring it to special events, and I can bring it to different places and use it where we need it instead of having it in a fixed place. But I can tell you that, like I said before, we don't have flock cameras, but that's not where I want to leave it, because that's not actually being transparent. We have access to a lot of cameras. It was mentioned that the county got grants. That's true. The county got the grants, the towns didn't, but the county shares their cameras with us. They share access. The Suffolk Sheriff's Department in particular administers the cameras that are that are in the East End towns. So they ask the towns, where would you like these cameras and how many would you like to? And we are all sharing the cameras that the Sheriff's Department administers.
But it's an interconnected network, right? I mean, you mentioned Car Found in Newark, New Jersey. If you put an alert out looking for that license plate, it's going to go to all these municipalities from here to there that have the license plate readers, have the data, I guess, collected from the license plate readers to try to find that car, right?
Yes, and it's up to the individual customer, in these cases, the individual police departments, to share that information if they want to. And naturally, they will share it with other law enforcement agencies for legitimate purposes, like finding a stolen vehicle.
Okay, and Chief, and how is the technology used? You mentioned license plates can be read. You mentioned that they can also sort of now pick up on types of vehicles. Is this stuff also have as far as facial recognition? When you talked about having a camera that you could take to events, is facial recognition one of the things that they can do?
No, not anything that we have access to.
Okay.
We don't have any access to facial recognition, nor does Flock have facial recognition.
So that's not an issue at this point. So I can remember going back, the first time I remember traffic cameras being a big issue was East Hampton Town, I believe, had set up a patrol car along Montauk Highway with a license plate reader in order to search for a particular fugitive who eventually was found. And the idea being sort of what Beth said about the North Fork, there are only so many roads in and out of certainly East Hampton. And if you could set up along Montauk Highway, the chances were you were going to get just about everybody. That was probably 10 years ago at this point when I first heard that. But it seems to me it's become more and more a part of what the various departments can do to crack down on things like car theft and when people, I recall that there was another incident that also was in East Hampton, but you were able to track down the suspects who had done a kind of significant robbery by tracking them on these cameras, right? There's a lot of different ways you can use this technology.
Yeah, you're right. When the East Hampton did that, we also did. We had a handful of cameras, and where we used them on our two main roads, Montauk Highway and Sunrise Highway, at the canal, so we could capture everybody coming in and out of town, and on our main roads. And if like you said before, if you avoided the main roads, you were not going to get captured on the camera. So we expanded that. Now we have access to cameras that are all over. And recently, the fatal hit and run right in front of Villa Paul, that was we found that person because of license plate reader cameras. The person that wasn't a fatal, luckily, that survived, that was in North Haven. And the car fled. We found that person as a result of license plate readers. And that was not even the license plate. That was, they broke the mirror off the side of the car, and these cameras found cars that had pickup trucks that had broken mirrors on the side. Um, you know,
License plate reader, the term license plate reader may be a bit of
Misnomer.
a misnomer. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. I mean, basically, these are just cameras on the side of the road. It's the software that takes the pictures from those cameras and is creating a database of license plates of cars that have gone through the area. Do I have that correct?
that's correct, but it's not as sophisticated as you might think. It's just the back of the car, and mainly the license plate is in focus. So although the software will pick up bumper stickers and colors, things like that, you won't be able to see how many people are in the vehicle or the person in the vehicle for that matter. Not with this level of camera, not with a license plate.
Are they all stationary or are some mobile? I
No,
mean, do patrol cars have these cameras too?
well, there are some on patrol cars, yeah. There are some attached to patrol cars.
So they can be used for a whole lot of different purposes then. They can, if you drive around, you can read parked cars um, along the street, that kind of thing too.
Yeah, look at
Well,
the town just went to those cameras now or it's in the pilot stage at the moment, but it's expanding for permits for parking at the parks,
Parking.
beaches, and so somewhat. So those are license plate readers as well.
the East Hampton paid parking. I think that's how
Right.
that works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beth, you
Yeah, I'm curious if there was a particular reason that Southampton Town didn't choose FLAC as their supplier, or if if your
No,
machines predated FLAC.
that's a great question. I am very fiscally conservative. It's pretty expensive.
Okay.
Flock will cost a police department $3,000 a year per camera. We just that would kill us. We just don't have the budget for that. It's recently with the sheriff's grant, it's been a game changer for us being able to get these cameras in place, and they share them with all 5 East End towns too. So it's not just us.
Is there an advantage to Flock because of its connected network, or you're connected into the same kind of network
You know,
anyway?
we met. I remember when Chief Skrzynecki was here. We invited the founder of that company. He wanted to pitch us to be the first town. It might have been in New York that were well, certainly Long Island, to have flock cameras, and we dismissed him because Vigilant was the big name then, and Vigilant was nationwide, and he wasn't. The Vigilant wouldn't let him connect to their system, and his technology over the years has surpassed Vigilance, and it's more user friendly. So they've become the bigger company now, and and more companies now exchange information. So Flock and Vigilant might talk to each other. Axon now is making like they make everything else. They're making license plate reader cameras, um, but. But those are the reasons we didn't not go with Flock, because they were very expensive, and but it is a great company, very user friendly company, and they support their customers.
between this and cell phone technology these days, we talk about this all the time that you see Rex Heuermann was arrested as the accused Gilgo Beach murderer, in part because of the technological advances that we've seen in the last few years. It's getting harder and harder to get away with a major crime because this kind of technology is everywhere, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, thank goodness. The technology advancements, look, I'm sensitive to the changes in the world, and the civil liberties, and things that just change so rapidly that sometimes you need to strike that balance. Public safety needs to use this technology, for crime prevention and detection. And as long as it's used responsibly, and there's checks and balances in place, and there's audits in place, it's needs to happen. We need to evolve with the times.
So you're not using these cameras necessarily for surveillance. You're not identifying a person and tracking their movements over a certain number of days because you suspect them of a crime, or maybe you are. But there's a difference between having a camera set up that's just taking pictures of every car that goes by and keying in a specific car or person. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean,
But there's nothing stopping you from doing that necessarily other than your policies.
if you have a legitimate law enforcement reason to do something like that and track a vehicle and put a specific license plate in a system, you have reason to believe they're stealing copper. Say, or a person has been going and selling a lot of copper, and we've been hit all over with copper, and putting that person's plate in to see if they're around the areas that this copper is being stolen. It's a legitimate law enforcement investigation, to see that.
Would you need a warrant for that? Or
No, not at the moment. Not at the moment. But in the Supreme Court today, there's GPS is in the Supreme Court today, right? So these things are looked at, these things are complained about, and changes will come. GPS, when I was working narcotics, I hate to say how many years ago, but we used to be able to, without a warrant, put a GPS device on a car. It sounds crazy, but we were allowed to do it when it first came out. And then shortly after it first came out, it was that was taken away, and you needed a warrant to put a GPS device on somebody's car.
We often see
I'm sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say we see, I think, more and more police relying on or utilizing anyway this kind of technology that so many people have installed on their homes and businesses. I mean, I always hear the police are getting, looking at video cameras and things like that, Ring cameras. Everybody's got a Ring camera. If you have one and you're connected to the Ring notification network, it's kind of, in some ways, almost funny, the things that, get put out over that. But, that's got to be, I think that's really an important resource for law enforcement today, right? I mean,
Absolutely is. It's part of every case now. There's a contingent of people that go out during any crime and canvass a neighborhood for just that, Ring camera videos, or videos attached to houses or businesses. We have a network of businesses here in Southampton that volunteer their cameras to us, so we can access them. If there's a crime in their area, that they allow us access to them without even asking. We just go on and look to see if a car passed or person passed.
I feel like it's worth pointing out that as far as timing goes, just this week, as a matter of fact, I believe it was just Wednesday, there was a conviction of a murder suspect for first-degree murder that occurred in East Quogue back in 2024. And the reason the conviction was able to get a first degree was because the man's own security system picked up a lot of that crime. So, I mean, that's a whole different way to be able to prosecute a case that didn't exist 20 years ago, really, there were some homes that had private security cameras, but not nearly to the ubiquity that we have them today. It's just changed the whole thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's invaluable to a prosecutor when a jury can see for themselves the malicious attack. In this case is over now, so you can talk about it. But the person's malicious attack on another human being, killing them, then they could, they could see, no, this is not murder two. This is murder one. This is somebody who intended to kill this person and did it viciously. So, and they saw it with their own eyes.
It's remarkable stuff.
Is there, Chief, is there a slippery slope here? Is there, you talked about being aware of civil liberties, and certainly you guys have policies in place, and the courts are constantly looking at this technology. Is there a slippery slope to these license plate cameras or other cameras that, where they might be used for surveillance where they might be? Is there a point that goes too far, or would you just like to see facial recognition on every camera and just and helping to keep the peace that way? Obviously, they're doing a lot of good. They're helping you in your jobs. They're returning people's property in these stolen cars. There's certainly a positive. Is there a fear of a negative? There are certainly people out there that see these cameras and their first fear is that, is police state, excuse the expression, Chief, or that type of thing, that this might, that these could be taken too far, and kind of violate people's privacy and rights. Or do we just need to accept the fact that there's no privacy anymore because of technology?
In a public place, though. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's
I actually wanted to bring you
a
into the
factor.
conversation, Denise, because as an attorney as well as a journalist, I'm wondering if where are the lines around this? Where are the borders where we should start being nervous about where it starts to cross a line?
I kind of feel like that Bill is pointing out, that's like a subjective thing for people.
It is, yeah.
It seems to me that people now are accustomed to the notion that if you're in a public place, chances are your image is caught on camera somewhere. I remember when they first became a thing, it was, people were like, it's Big Brother, from 1984, George
Surveillance
Orwell
state.
book,
It's like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
surveillance state is the phrase that gets tossed around.
So, like, when they start requiring them in your home, I think that's when I get nervous. But
When Bill said, should we just
Yeah.
accept this? And I think it's
know.
important, especially our generation, to not accept it and make sure future generations know there has to be checks and balances. But we have to look at the technology. We have to use the technology for protecting the public. We have to use it. So, the best way to protect it is to use it responsibly, have audits, make those audits transparent, make them public. You could see how many times we used it and for what. Look, we're talking right now, we're having a conversation, and our cell phones are picking up our conversation, and we're going to go on social media later, and pop-ups are going to come up about flock cameras and other things. So even in your house, there's
is that how that happens?
right? So we are in a different world. We are
Yeah.
not New York City, where you could walk around and they could see, the type of gum you're
Follow
chewing.
your. Yeah.
That's but there's reason for that. There's counterterrorism reasons for that being. Luckily, we're not at that point here, but that's the privacy has changed. Privacy has changed.
We're not at that point here, but we certainly could be in not too far into the future. It's no longer science fiction. It's certainly a reality that.
It's
I
here.
think the point the chief just made is a really important one. Frankly, we talk about privacy and individual rights and civil liberties and things. Like, the technology that's so pervasive now goes way beyond like a camera that can capture your image in a public place or your license plate number. I mean, whether it's your phone picking up conversation, or I won't say Alexa's name, but listening to what you're saying, and just I mean, even for example, and these are for things that are not like something that gives you some degree of comfort, like public safety. These are for people that want to sell you things or take your data and sell it to other companies that want to sell you things. It's a lot less of a noble cause in my mind, but and then like there's also like questions of governments using GPS, or I'm not sure what the right technology is, but where they can see satellite imagery, I guess, of people's private property in their backyards and things, and like, oh, this person built a shed back there. We can't see it from the road, but we can see it from above. And I mean, we've had conversations. I've heard conversations like that in town hall and in Riverhead, and that's a whole other kind of what some people would consider an intrusion.
Everybody has access to that on Google Earth, not just law
It's not just
enforcement.
government. You can
Yeah.
go
No,
and everybody can look at everybody's property.
I think they have things that are much more current though than what we see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of
I
the
don't
reasons I
know,
asked
but
about the facial recognition, because that's obviously at sort of the cutting edge of this issue. Let me pause for a second and just remind people that this is Behind the Headlines on WLIW. I'm Joe Shaw. My co-host is Bill Sutton. Our guests this week are Beth Young of the East End Beacon, Denise Civiletti of Riverhead Local, and our special guest is Police Chief James Kiernan of the Southampton Town Police Department. Chief, so the surveillance cameras, the license plate reader cameras, can you say how many there are in Southampton Town at any given moment?
It's probably safe to tell you how many at the moment that the sheriff has for the entire East End. Right now, it looks like 62, I think, is the last number I saw. That's all of the 5 East End towns sharing. 62
Okay,
of them
62.
in different areas. We have a good chunk of them, being the biggest town. So we have a good chunk of those, but it's divided by 5 of us.
And I wanted to ask, so there's also body cameras. Your department uses body cameras, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm curious about the logistics of where all of that video goes and how it's managed. How does that work?
It is a monstrosity to deal with. Our contract with Axon, that's the company that we have with body worn cameras, is up in 27, and I have no idea how we're going to fund that again. We funded it last time
the expense.
with a state grant, a federal grant, and the town paid a third. I have no idea how we're going to do that. I'm looking for grants again to fund that again, but you're right. The storage is unbelievable. It's so expensive.
Can we describe it in some way? What are we talking about? How many hours of footage are generated by your department
And,
in
and
a
the
given?
the man hours, each hour of video there's about 5 hours behind that video to manage it. Just the redacting, the dealing with foils, and the dealing with discovery. So things we've never done before. People that were doing all kinds of different work for the police department now just do that, just to keep up. And we're at least 5 months behind as it is with foils.
Your department does that? It's not a private contractor. You actually have personnel who are doing that.
Yeah, we do it. We do it
Wow.
ourselves.
And do they have
But
to
you have to
review
pay for
every?
the storage. The storage is
Yeah.
astronomically expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the deal we made with them with this first go around, it was 5 years. It almost cost us $1 million for everybody to have a camera and unlimited storage for 5 years. But now in 2027, we'll be coming up on the end of that contract. So, I don't know where that $1 million is going to come from. But
Where are most of those foils coming from? Is it people with active court cases who are looking to collect evidence in their favor, or
yeah, those.
I mean, I know you guys have to share those with the DA's office fairly quickly, right?
Yeah. And there's a lot that come from traffic accidents. The insurance companies want them. So there's a lot that come from all different. Just the public in general want to hear what was said from the other side. You have a domestic, they want to hear what the other person said about them. There's a lot that goes into.
But
So
I'm
talk
guessing
about the advantages of having those body cameras and having an accurate recording of events.
Yeah, no doubt. It has made the profession better. It has. It's been an enormous expense and a lot of work to manage it. But it has. There's more trust now that people see overwhelmingly the job that you're doing. Although you'll always remember that a video is not the whole story. It's not a human experience. It's just telling a two-dimensional story where you need to investigate and get the whole human experience along with the witnesses, the video, and everything else to make determinations of what actually happened anywhere. But it's significant in community trust.
Well, and helps police officers as well who may be subject to accusations of misdeeds or misconduct, to be able to go to that video footage and show that they did not in fact commit those misdeeds.
No doubt, it helps. That happens every week.
I find it fascinating. I don't know, Chief, have you seen the Netflix documentary The Perfect Neighbor, which is
Oh,
which which is entirely made up. It's a documentary about an incident that occurred in a neighborhood back in 2023, but it's told entirely with body camera footage.
Wow.
It's an amazing thing. I think it happened in Florida, in Ocala, Florida, but it just goes to show you that you can tell an entire story from the body cam footage, but it also shows you how subjective that body cam footage. And I found the documentary fascinating because you really do get to see in small bites the challenges that police officers face when they're dealing with the public, whether they're dealing with victims or folks who are nearby that the victims is calling attention to. There are just so many gray areas that they're dealing with at any given moment, and I feel like the body camera footage can really help bridge that gap. I'm old enough now that I remember watching Cops all that time and how groundbreaking that was. That was groundbreaking though, because I think we really got to see.
What do you mean remembering Cops? It's still on.
You're right. But I remember how cutting edge that felt at the time, because we were seeing things that were happening in real life, and you don't know how the cameras affect that. But I think with body cameras, you really are seeing what happens in real life. It isn't affected so much by the body cameras. I think it changes our perception of police work. Have you
Yeah.
found that to be the case when you interact with the public?
Yeah, I absolutely have found that to be the case. I do see that, is a difference. When I did in-service training this morning and talked to the troops about how the job was different when I was pulling over cars. Now they're always on video. They're always there. I was never on video. So there are things in that 28 years I wish I didn't say to people, or I wish I'd handled differently. But I didn't have the scrutiny afterward either. Nobody was watching. Nobody was seeing. Maybe there was a complaint against me, and maybe I say, oh yeah, I shouldn't have said that. But it was just. But nobody could see. And I wasn't under that microscope. But yeah, it's definitely different.
Do you think cops today, knowing that they have that camera on, that helps them to modify their behavior when they need to? That it might be tempting to say that wrong thing or whatever, but they know the camera's there, so they keep their cool better.
I do. I believe that they are mostly professional anyway, but
Well, of course.
having that camera, knowing that it's video, knowing somebody's going to watch it, it certainly keeps them in check, keeps their language in check. Absolutely. And
Chief,
and the other way around too. They could point to that camera and advise another person that's not being that's being, however, acting, misbehaving or whatever, and check their behavior too.
Chief, I'm
I'm
curious.
curious.
Do you think? I'm sorry, Beth. Do you
I'm
mind if
more
I
curious.
just ask real quick? I just
Right,
want to ask
go.
real quick. Are younger officers, are they have an easier time with the technology than veteran officers for that reason?
Oh, absolutely. In 2 seconds, they're in and out of. They know how to use this equipment, and they're used to the video world.
They're online all the time anyway. Yeah,
They're
that's
perfect.
interesting.
They've embraced it. This is their world. They're fine being on video.
My apologies, Beth. Go ahead.
No problem. No problem. No, I'm just curious if the number of FOIL requests has been steady over time, or if was like a big rush at the beginning, or
Oh, it's increasing over time now,
increasing.
especially now that people know that they can get it. The more people that are aware that they can get it, and are aware that their incident was recorded, the more they want to see it. It's going to be, it's going to just keep getting more and more and more and more. Before it was just defense attorneys wanted it because they knew it was available. Now everybody wants to see what's on video regarding their incident.
Do you think there's any opportunities to streamline that process, or is it always going to be really labor
I
intensive?
think what we need to do is purge things more quickly, and we started with car stops and tickets and stuff, and just 90 days. If it's purged, whether it goes to court or not, it's not available. It's gone. It's purged.
I was just going to ask how long you have to keep things.
Yeah, we work with the district attorney, and they would like us to keep things longer, especially sometimes they would like, especially with arrests. only you don't only want to keep it for the time the case is going to take, but also what time it takes where the person might have an appeal. So you want to keep you're keeping that a long time. But in terms of violations, you can get rid of that. That could be a departmental. You're not regulated on how long you can keep that. You can right away.
You mentioned that you have the staff processing that video and redacting that video. What kinds of things do you need to redact from?
You want to redact, personal. Let's say it's a domestic incident, and both parties want the video, want that body-worn camera footage. Well, you're going to redact the other party's uh, things, personal things from each thing. You could get what yours is. You can get all of your stuff, but you can't get the other person's stuff. So you're gonna blur out their face. And domestic's probably not exactly the best because everybody knows each other anyway, but you still don't want to make it easy and hand over somebody's personal information.
That's interesting. When we had the wildfires this spring, I was taken by just how much the use of drones has changed firefighting. I'm curious how your department uses drones, or if it does, and if so, how.
We have a great drone program. We started it several years ago. We have 11 drone pilots, all part-time. They do other things for the police department, but they're drone pilots. And we have drones that will drop a life jacket into somebody that's in the ocean. We right now the most significant terroristic threat. You used to last year we were talking about people, lone wolves driving people, running people over at special events and things like that. That's still a threat, but right now we're looking at a delivery of gas or some kind of chemical from a drone in areas where people gather. So it's important to have counter surveillance. Your drones should be looking for other drones. We use them at every special event. We're going to have a big program at the U.S. Open this year, not only using our drones but private drones and drone detection, where we'll be able to detect drones that are in the air and see if they're ours or whose they are and where the person's operating from, and then deploy police officers to where the person's operating from and see, are they media? Are they allowed to be there, or are they somebody looking to cause harm?
That's a good thing for the media to know.
Yeah, right. Well, the media's going to know ahead of time.
Yeah.
Usually the media is very good. They comply with what the restrictions are, so it's not something that, and they're not usually the bad ones.
There's some restrictions
you're
on
using drones, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say there's some restrictions I know from us using drones to cover events that you've got to be careful. Like you're not allowed to look into the second floor windows of properties, things like that. Are those issues for the police as well?
Well, you're going to need a warrant to do something like that. But when we use our drones, we don't use them for surveillance like that. We use them, if we have a barricaded subject, we have drones that will go inside a house. We could fly a drone from our vehicle or outside the house, inside the house, find the person, see if they're armed or what have you, see if they're sleeping, see if it's safe to go get them. Whatever, we have different drones for different things, looking for people, kids that are missing. Nothing is, if anything, that's the biggest advantage. When we used to have to call fire departments and get hundreds of people out to look in every swimming pool in a neighborhood because a 3-year-old walked away from their house, now we can get a drone up immediately and check the area and find the kid. It's really a game changer.
Yeah, and having to call a helicopter, I mean, it's just such a huge expense.
And 10 years from now, where I won't be here, but 10 years from now, we'll have drone as first responder, and that will be a drone, that will be civilian pilots in the dispatch, where drones will be going to every call and getting information back to responding police officers, and they'll be able to see what they're going into, who has the weapon, who's running away. They'll lock onto vehicles that are running away, so no chases anymore. There won't be well, not that we chase anybody now, but there won't be those things will be a thing of the past where police chase people. The drone will follow somebody and you'll find them when they stop, and it'll just be much safer.
That's incredible.
Sounds like a big relief.
Absolutely. This is Behind the Headlines on WLIW. I'm Joe Shaw. My co-host is Bill Sutton. Our panelists this week are Beth Young of the East End Beacon, Denise Civiletti of Riverhead Local, and Southampton Town Police Chief James Kiernan. And we're talking about technology and what the departments are using. Chief, do you get negative feedback about this from the public at all, as far as surveillance state and people who don't want police to have their body cameras on, or how does that work?
I can tell you, well, most of it comes from what I read in the paper, right? So that it comes from there. Some complaints to town board directly, and those are the bosses. And then they ask for explanations of why we need this technology. And just like we're talking about now, the town board will ask me the same questions. But there is also, not locally, we have a lot of support in this community for law enforcement. I think it's, I think they trust that we're respectful, and they know for the most part, the community supports us because we are preventing crime here. And that's our goal, in keeping people safe. We enjoy that support. But nationally, there is a contingent. There are groups of people who are against law enforcement and would like to see no law enforcement have these tools, and not have the ability to investigate and prevent those crimes. There are, and they're organized. They'll attack companies like Flock, and they're organized, and they'll look for ways to attack them and then exploit it or twist things to make it look like there's security breaches, or there's a lot of information sharing or hacks. Flock has never been hacked. It's never once been hacked. But there's things out there on the internet that will tell you that it has been, and people's personal information has been
Can I push back gently against that a little bit, though, Chief? Because I support law enforcement. I fully support law enforcement, but I have to tell you, some of the surveillance part of this starts to make my haunches come up a little bit, because I do feel like there is a right to be left alone as a citizen. That if I'm out in public, the assumption that I might be doing something wrong. I mean, Chief, to be fully transparent here, I was never a big fan of even DWI checkpoints. I understand how great that is, but I like the idea that just because I'm driving at night, I might be drunk, and so I should be stopped and searched in some way, bothers me as an American citizen. I feel like Americans have a right not to be constantly surveilled. It's a difficult, I mean, we're really where this is the friction is on this, because I can see all of the real benefits to this. We see it in the last few years with all of these cases that we're discussing, where having that surveillance enabled solving cases that just wouldn't have been solved before then. So I don't know. Walk me through this. Why should I not be concerned about? Again, it's not an anti-police thing for me. I just feel like I should be allowed to be in public and doing my thing without constantly being watched.
I completely respect that opinion. I completely respect what you're saying, and I will go back to what Denise said before. It's subjective. Everybody puts that needle in a different place. From all the way from you should have your DNA on file with the government, right? All the way to absolutely no surveillance, no anything. So we all fall somewhere in there on every issue. And no two people are the same. We all have that different spot where it should be. And I think that's where law enforcement is it's so important for us to be transparent and audit ourselves and make sure that we, if there is a mess up, if there is a young officer that puts his girlfriend's license plate or her boyfriend's license plate into this system, that they're dealt with, that it's transparent, that people know about it, and things like that.
I agree with you. Transparency is the key to all this, definitely.
Yeah, And I think I just want to circle a little bit back to the county's cameras,
Yeah.
because I think some of the concerns that we were hearing up here were about not knowing what their sharing policies were, because we knew what the local police department's sharing policies were, but
Yeah.
we were a little less clear about the county. And since they're in the town, but the county might not necessarily share with the same like federal law enforcement agencies that the town would.
Yeah.
What safeguards do you see in place, and what do you think the public should know about that?
Well, sharing information. So you're going to share with I can tell you, one of the big questions. What federal agencies does the local police share information with regard to LPRs? Well, we don't administer flocks. The sheriff's department does. But before I came on this, I made sure I knew the answer to that question. Sheriff's department, as well as the Suffolk Police Department, who administers theirs, do not share with federal agencies the LPR data, right? So they can't access it. For some reason, the sheriff's department told me that they do share data with the U.S. Post Office. I didn't ask the follow-up question. Why does the post office need it? But I wish I did ask that question, so I had that answer for you. But no other federal agencies. They don't share with any other federal agencies.
I'll put a fine point on it. They're not sharing with ICE.
They're not sharing, and Flock doesn't share with anybody without the permission of the customer. So the customer has all the control over that. And back to Bill's. I just want to say one thing about Bill's point about being over surveilled. I think this is different and less of an intrusion than like speed cameras, where you get a ticket. You actually get a ticket in the mail. I think this is different. This is used as a tool to build a case where that's already violating you, and you're getting fined based on it. I do think there's a place for things like that, maybe school zones and work zones where it is actually legal now. But I think it may be an overstep to have that kind of technology where it actually dishes out fines to people on all public roads.
I don't disagree necessarily, but I think back to a time, and I'm old enough to remember a time, before seatbelts were required, and when the seatbelts were required and everybody was up in arms. It's my right to risk my life, but how many lives have been saved by that? And to Joe's point about DWI checkpoints, I don't disagree with that necessarily, but I know it's saved lives, and it's
Agreed.
kept people who would abandon caution and drive while intoxicated to do that. So I think that there's been technologies that have come across that that every time something new happens, there's always been a little bit of an objection, whether it's a seatbelt or something else, and I think that eventually you see the positive of it. I am concerned though about oversaturation and and that type of people tracking movements of people for no reason, and and that type of thing. But I think Chief, your point is correct. As long as the agencies that are using that technology have policies in place and have protections in place and are open and honest about it, then I think that certainly helps.
And I think it's
sorry, go ahead.
I think it's important to understand that even though they're taking pictures of every license plate, there are, at any given time, there aren't not that many license plates that are on what the so-called hot list. It's these that they have real reasonable cause to believe that these vehicles were involved in a crime, and at a given time, I don't think that number is very high. So,
that being said, though, I mean, with that technology, you could Chief, you could put my license plate in the system right now and know where I was this morning, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's elements both ways.
It's about trust.
Yeah.
It is about trust and use of the power in a careful way. We have a couple of minutes left, Chief, and you actually anticipated something I wanted to ask about, which is, what is the current law right now when it comes to speed cameras, stoplight cameras, stop sign cameras? And there is a local push now to start to allow the use of cameras to enforce stop signs, I think, right? There's a push to do that in Albany from some of the local legislators. Can you talk about where the law stands on those issues?
I don't know everything about it, but I can tell you what you just talked about with stop signs. That's limited to actually villages, believe it or not, village municipalities, and it's pilot programs. So I know there's several villages in the town that have applied to be pilot programs. North Haven being one. I don't know if they got it. I don't think they did yet. But speed cameras are illegal in New York State, except in school zones and work zones where they're doing construction on the roadway, right? So at the moment, those are speed cameras are illegal. There is a big push. People constantly ask. They want people going 30 miles an hour on their road. They want people going slower on their residential roadways. On it's main streets like Noyak Road, County Road 39. They want those traffic. They want traffic going slower. Last year we did a speed initiative. We didn't use too much technology. We used manpower and overtime. And we doubled our speed enforcement tickets in the 1 year. So 2025 we had 2,400 something tickets from that up from 2024 where we had 1,000 low 1,000 and some odd. So we doubled it. I think we made a significant impact on 39. It's still not there where the public wants it to be. They really want people to hit the brakes on that road. They want it to be, and I always use this example. We all know that when you hit the Quogue Village border, you slow down. And they want 39 to be like that, where you are going 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour.
We should probably define our terms too, that when we talk about speed cameras, there are a lot of those speed cameras that are set up in various places that just let you know what your speed is and encourage you to slow down. Those are perfectly legal, and they're really just warning you that you might be going too fast. That's not, we're talking about speed cameras that actually result in tickets, right?
Right. The ones that are illegal are the ones that are a ticket. But
Gotcha.
yeah, well, and we have software right now that it's new to us, that where we used to have last year we would drag a trailer out to see it, do a study. Somebody said, on let's say on Noyak Road, people are going 65 miles an hour. You need to stop this. We would put a trailer out there for a few days, see what the speeds were, see what times the speeds are. We actually have we have software right now where we don't need a trailer. We can go on this software, any road in the town, and tell what the traffic is doing and what it has been doing. Now, no personal information, no registrations, no people, no anything. It picks up GPS signal from cell phones, from the car emanating it from satellite radio, whatever it is. But this technology is picking up GPS of traffic traveling on public roadways and giving us that information. So we can now target, okay, you know what? These folks are right. This is going on at this time on this road. We'll deploy our police officers to do speed enforcement this time on this road. We could also say, no, you're wrong. The speeds on this road are not 60 miles an hour. This is what's going on.
And it's just
Can they detect
fascinating stuff.
overweight vehicles?
Yeah.
I have one of the cameras on the bridge, on the Ponquag Bridge right now, because people are going over that bridge overweight. So we
Awesome
have to put a
stuff.
stop to that.
We really appreciate you taking the time to explain all this, Chief. We're out of time. Thank you to Police Chief James Kiernan of Southampton Town for being with us. Thank you to Beth Young and Denise Civiletti as well. Thanks to Bill Sutton, my co-host. I'm Joe Shaw. We'll see you next time on another edition of Behind the Headlines. Thanks, guys.